least I say that now. So I am, and listen, we'll have plenty of time to talk about whatever's on your mind then. We can revisit some of the great characters that made the last campaign so fun to follow. Bill Ayers and Reverend Wright, Joe the plumber, and the aforementioned Sarah Palin, plays a prominent role in my book. But rather than kind of just taking you back down a trip of memory lane and focusing on the highlights that were covered all so well, I thought I'd talk a little bit about some of the threads that run their way through the book and that ran their way through our campaign. And also, I think incredibly important as you evaluate the president and what he's trying to do for the American people in the current, in the White House. The first important thread that runs through the book is that we defied political convention all throughout the campaign in ways big and small. And one thing I write in the book is, as hard as it was to start the campaign from scratch, and I spent a lot of time at the beginning of the book setting that up because he's sitting now in the White House, he just came back from China. It's hard to reconcile that with the fact that, you know, when we started this thing, it could not have been more improbable. We had no assets. We didn't have an email list. We didn't have computers. We didn't have anything. And as hard as that was, and it was hard, I used to liken it to, when I write the book, it was like trying to lift a jumbo jet off while we were still affixing the wings to the plane. We benefited from that in one large way. We did not have a stale playbook on the shelf about how we or anyone in 2008 should run for president. We looked at everything from before a fresh set of eyes. And out of that came a very unconventional campaign plan and tactics to support it. And the first thing that's very important, and it wound its way from the very beginning all the way through the election of November 4th, was at the very heart of our candidacy was something that has been tried often in politics and almost always met with failure, which was a belief, and for us, a necessity that we had to change the electorate. I spent a lot of time in the book, not surprisingly, talking about Iowa and what it meant to us, and why we thought the race would change if we won Iowa. So I won't bore you with that tonight, I hope you'll read it. But that was our one narrow path. I believe if you ran this race 100 times, Hillary Clinton would win at 95. Our odds were that low. And by the way, we knew that. We lived every day, as my wife was here with us, can attest, with the belief that if one mistake was made, if we were not disciplined, we'd lose our one shot at victory. That was not a fun way to live, but it made us a smart campaign and eventually a very dangerous campaign because of that discipline. So we had to win Iowa. The problem is, we couldn't win Iowa if the people who had come out in every single Democratic caucus from 76 to 2014 came out. We couldn't. Our first poll, Edwards is 38, Hillary's 26, we're down at 14. And as we looked at what we thought we could do, best case scenario with that electorate, it was maybe second, probably third. So there we are with our must-win state, and no chance to win if the history repeated itself. So we set out to do something that had never been done before, which was to turn the Iowa caucus into a much different event. Younger people, independents, Republicans, even African Americans and Latinos who don't make up a huge population center. But in a caucus, if you get people out, you benefit from it in terms of the math. So as you're following 2007, you know, there's a lot of discussion about national polls and even Iowa polls and even support levels. We weren't really paying attention to any of that. We were paying attention underneath, were we creating the electorate that we thought we needed to win? Were enough first-time caucus voters attending? Were young voters signing up? You might remember we sent Oprah Winfrey into Iowa. And the narrative at the moment in the media was, this could be a big mistake because Oprah's support may not transfer to voters. Well, of course not. We know that. We didn't think anyone was going to vote for us because Oprah Winfrey was endorsing us. But what we did know is we could send Oprah Winfrey to Iowa, have 22,000 people attend events, which is an enormous number in the state of Iowa. And of course, because of data these days, we knew who they were that night. And it was 75 or 80% of the people who attended those events had never gone to a caucus. Many of them would never go to a political event. Some were not even registered. And that was manna to heaven for us. That's why we did those Oprah events, to try and reach non-traditional caucus goers. It's why I speak about our discipline in the campaign. We turned down a lot of traditional events that other candidates had never turned down, going back to Jimmy Carter. And we took a lot of heat for it. But if we just talked to the normal suspects at a Democratic Party county fundraising event, we were limiting our appeal. We had to open up the floodgates. So as you think about Iowa, that's what we were thinking about. And part of what I think if you read this book is you're going to see the campaign through our eyes. And Not the way many of you witnessed it in the media, what we were thinking about, the strategies and decisions that we made. And many days we thought we were running a different race than was being covered in the media, or that our opponents were running, thankfully. So changing the electorate was an important part of the primaries. And what happened on the night of Iowa is something that I still think is the most striking statistic of the entire election. Every Iowa caucus, people over 65 turned out at twice the rate of people under 30. It makes sense. A caucus is a strange event. It's a very political event. It's a 2-hour commitment on a cold Monday night. We could not win at that level, as I said. So we organized every high school, every community college, every college. We flooded bars and restaurants. We went to find people. These types of voters are not watching CNN. They're not reading the New York Times or the Morning Register. We've got to go out and find them, and that's what we did. So the night we won the Iowa caucus, which had we lost it, Barack Obama would have been out of that race by the end of January. It would have been a small and insignificant footnote in political history. We won the Iowa caucuses, but as many people under 30 turned out as over 65. It's an astonishing performance. And what you have to understand is almost everything you saw in our campaign after Iowa was a direct reflection of things that either worked or didn't work. Iowa was our laboratory. We spent a year there. We flooded the state with staff and volunteers. We had an appreciation for what worked and didn't work. So that belief in expanding the electorate carried forward to the general election against John McCain. And we defied convention here in another very big way. The presidential campaign is often covered as if it's a national campaign. You know, a lot of attention to national polling, for instance. But it is anything but. It is a very, very complex puzzle to get to an electoral college majority. And as we got done with the primary and went into the general, our number one strategic principle and guiding belief was that we could not wake up like Al Gore did or John Kerry did with one state holding our fate. We just weren't going to do it. And so we set out to try and expand the playing field. And that's why we went into states like Virginia, and Indiana, North Carolina, and Florida, and Missouri, and Montana. States I will tell you that, I had to go back and read a lot of commentary to write this book. There's a popular myth out there that the national press picked Barack Obama up on their shoulders and carried him to the West Wing. Well, I can assure you that was not the case. But in this particular case, it was not true because the commentary was highly negative about what we were doing. Leading Democrats in our party, both on and off the record, deeply critical of this. They're spreading themselves too thin. This election is going to be decided in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Ohio. And they're making a big mistake. And this speaks to the president's discipline and our organization's discipline. We had a theory. The theory was we were going to put John McCain on the run. We're going to make him defend territory that he never thought he'd have to defend, that we think we have a credible chance to win. Not going to win them all. Because it's not a war, of course, but there are elements of it. You want to own the battleground. You want your opponent fighting to defend their home cities and states. And that's what we did by putting that kind of pressure on it. And we did it in a way that was, some considered risky. The states that John Kerry had won, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Minnesota, that we knew were going to be targets by John McCain, we did not put as an aggressive campaign in there as we did in Bush states we were trying to take away. They didn't see Barack Obama as much, or Joe Biden. They didn't get as much money or staff. They still ran robust campaigns. But our entire orientation was not to protect and defend, to go on offense. And it was all in service of this. So that on the morning of November 4th, I could wake up with the following sentence. We thought we'd hold all the states carried. All of them, including Pennsylvania, which McCain went on some desperate last jag for, but we never thought we were in danger. And we thought the two that were most likely to flip almost assuredly were Iowa and New Mexico. So that puts us at 264, right on the doorstep of the presidency. So as you think about this is what the entire campaign was for us, all of it. Every moment of my time, every minute Barack Obama spent, every dollar we spent was in service of this. So that we could wake up on November 4th and lose Colorado, and Nevada, and Ohio, Missouri, Montana, Indiana, North Carolina, Florida, lose them all, but win Virginia and win the presidency.